attract peace while you're addicted to pain. You can't receive healthy love while your inner child is still chasing the familiar chaos. You can't. But that's the beauty of refinement. God will keep removing what isn't love until you finally recognize what is. Welcome to Break the Cycles podcast, the space where we rebuild the woman behind the titles. I'm your host, Alicia Cherie. Hey, beautiful souls. Tell me this. Have you ever felt God pulling you back into a season of stillness? Not to punish you, but to purify you. That moment when everything that used to feel comfortable suddenly feels tight. You feel it in your gut. Some things are just different now. And you can't fake your way through it anymore. If you're nodding right now, this episode is for you. Hey, soul sister. Before we dive in, make sure you followed and subscribed to this podcast so you never miss the next drop of healing energy. Also, if something in this episode speaks to your spirit, share it with a friend, a sister, or anyone who's walking their own healing journey. Because together, we're not just healing, we're evolving, expanding, and reclaiming our power. Now, let's get into today's episode. Refinement isn't about loss. It's about release. It's about letting go of who you thought you had to be so you can rise as who you were always becoming. And just a little disclaimer, we are going to do a lot of reflecting in this episode. And trust me, we will need it. So take a deep breath with me. Inhale grace. Exhale resistance. Let's walk through this together. So what is refinement? Refinement isn't punishment. It may seem like it is because this is the beginning of shedding things that no longer fit in our life. But refinement isn't punishment. It's a holy process, a spiritual detox where God starts stripping away everything that can't go with you into your next level. That is why it's uncomfortable, because it asks you to surrender what you once prayed for, whether it's the relationships, the job you have, the identities and habits, even the versions of yourself that helped you survive and get through your hardest life challenges. So you're probably thinking, why would I want to get rid of that? Because that's just the thing. It was never you, your true authentic self. It was who you had to become because you were living in survival mode. For me, refinement began when everything that looked successful on the outside started to feel empty on the inside. And that was hard to accept because I put a lot of work, time, and effort into the person I thought I should be. I had the career, the credentials, the title, but my soul was restless. It was like God whispered to me, "Daughter, this isn't who you are anymore." And that whisper became impossible for me to ignore. So, you all know my background, right? Years of supporting the Department of Defense, from engineering to project management and all the structure, strategy, deadlines, and leadership and survival that came along with it. And don't get me wrong, the career taught me discipline and excellence, but it also taught me to suppress my softness. I learned how to wear an armor, how to show up competent, composed, and collected, but deep down inside I was breaking, literally breaking. In that world, vulnerability was weakness. Intuition was dismissed, and overworking was rewarded. But over time, that armor seemed to get heavier and heavier, and I just couldn't hold it anymore. I felt like I had to force myself to get up and go to work. Who can relate there? Dreading to go to work. Like, there's just no passion nor desire behind it anymore. It just felt forceful. You see, I didn't just have to do the job. That's the thing. I had to constantly prove I deserved to be there in the first place. I was a young minority female, leading teams of older, retired men who had served in the military and believed they knew better, believed they were smarter, and believed they didn't need to listen to me. Many of them felt like I had no business leading them, and some of them had no shame and would say that to my face. Literally. They saw my gender and my age before they ever saw my skills and intelligence. And because of that, guess what I did? I overcompensated. I learned faster. I worked harder. I stayed later. Every time someone doubted me, I took it as a personal challenge to prove them wrong. And I did over and over again. But what I didn't realize then was that the constant need to prove myself was quietly disconnecting me from myself. It pushed me deeper into my masculine energy, always matching their intensity, always on guard, always leading from defense instead of flow. I had to lead like an alpha to earn respect in a room that wasn't built to respect me. And while I succeeded because I always welcomed a challenge, and surely I got promotions, the leadership roles, and the recognition, but it all came at a cost of losing myself, which I didn't realize at the time. I was constantly operating in survival mode, armored up, unable to rest. I had to become what the world respected, but what my soul rejected. There came a moment when my spirit said, enough. You just can't do this anymore. And I remember when it really hit. Coming home from work one evening around 6:30 after picking my kids up, and I was just so drained and depleted. And my work phone was still ringing. My Teams chat constantly going off. I walked in my bedroom, didn't even change out of my work clothes. I just looked at my bed and I fell face forward on my bed, just so tired. I just wanted to lay down. Next thing you know, I woke up and the kids were showered, fed, and in bed. It was 1 a.m. My oldest daughter the next morning was like, Mom, I tried to wake you up, but you were out. So she said she made her and my youngest daughter dinner. She showered my youngest daughter. And that is when I realized, like, I was so depleted, so exhausted. I meant to lay down for like a 10-minute nap just to kind of reset. And I fell asleep till 1 a.m. Like my body just shut down. And that's when I was like, I can't do this. I cannot do this anymore. My kids not only need me, they deserve me and my presence. And I realized I had built a life that impressed everyone, but fulfilled no one, least of all of me. And that's when refinement began. God started exposing the parts of me that were rooted in fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of disappointing people. And He gently asked me to lay them all down. And at first, of course, I resisted because that's what many of us do. That's our first reaction. I was like, what? How can I just let all of this go? It's who I became for decades now. It was then I realized my identity was built on performance, and that's why rest felt like rebellion to me. I had to constantly go, go, go just to prove that I was worthy of something. But here's the thing. Refinement will force you to rest. And it's not for punishment. It's for preparation. Now, I want to pause here because I know a lot of you listening were where I once was. You're showing up every day to a job that's draining the life out of you. But you keep telling yourself, I should be grateful. I have a job. I'm paying my bills. I'm supporting my family. But the question to ask yourself is at what cost? Let's take a breath together. Inhale peace. Exhale pressure. And just take a moment, either now or later if you're driving or moving around, but ask yourself honestly, do I feel fulfilled or just functional? Am I working from purpose or fear of not being enough without the title? That was a big one for me. Do I hide behind productivity because slowing down feels scary? Hmm? Maybe being busy is your norm due to conditioning. Have I mistaken busyness for worth? Do I stay in environments that constantly devalue me because I'm afraid of losing stability? Have I hardened parts of myself just to survive in a space that was never built to honor me? If any of that hits home, I want you to know this. God never designed you to survive in spaces that silence your soul. That was never the case nor the intent of your existence. Never. And you are allowed to want more, not just money, but more meaning. You're allowed to walk away from what no longer honors your peace by all means. And you're allowed to believe that rest, purpose, and provision can coexist. It really can. And when you surrender the idol of performance, you make room for divine partnership, where God becomes your provider, not your paycheck. This is where your faith comes in. Faith that even when we don't know how or why, God will provide us. He has our back. If you are thinking about taking that leap and quitting your job or going to a different career path or leaving that relationship, whatever it is, and you don't know what it looks like moving forward or what the clear path is, just know God does. That's having faith. Don't lose your faith no matter what. So take the moment to whisper to yourself. You can also write these down and use them as affirmations. Maybe post them on the wall where you can see them daily, as there is power in not only speaking, but reading and writing. So the first one is, I am not defined by what I produce. I am not defined by what I produce. I am defined by who I am becoming. I am defined by who I am becoming. I trust God to align me with purpose, not pressure. I trust God to align me with purpose, not pressure. Because refinement doesn't just happen in relationships. It happens in the boardrooms, the cubicles, the work offices. And sometimes the biggest act of faith is stepping back so God can step in. Let's move on and talk about relationships next. Buckle up because this one was a hard truth to face. For a long time, I held on to toxic relationships, not just one, but several. Who can relate? How many of us have been down that path? And it wasn't because I didn't know better, but because that's all I knew. Dysfunction was my norm. Growing up, I saw both sides of unhealthy love, and that's what made it so confusing. On one side, I watched women pour into men who didn't deserve them. Women like my mother who gave and gave, believing love could fix a broken man. And let me tell you, honey, it cannot. She loved through abuse, betrayal, and neglect. And even when she was hurting, she stayed. I saw her confuse endurance with loyalty. And as a little girl, that became my blueprint. That love meant staying, even when it was painful. How awful. But on the other side, I also saw women who weaponized love, like my grandmother, who took advantage of my grandfather's kindness and gentleness. He was such a good, genuine man, like a real man, a true provider and protector. But she, She controlled him. She belittled him and used fear and manipulation under the guise of faith. And then there was my other grandmother who wasn't loved at all, treated more like a servant than a wife, catering to her husband's every demand without affection and without respect. So as a child, I saw love expressed in extremes. One woman gave too much, another withheld it completely, and the other wasn't allowed to receive it at all. It was terrible. No one modeled balance. And that's why I was so confused. Like, this is what love is? No one showed me what healthy love looked like. Being mutual, being respectful, steady, safe, secure, protection. I didn't see any of that. And it was so confusing. So what did I do? I grew up believing that love had to hurt, or that control was safety. I learned that if I wasn't overgiving, I was unworthy. And if I wasn't in control, I was unsafe. Yep, that's how my patterns formed. And because of that, I became the nurturer, the fixer, the forgiver, the one holding everything together while falling apart inside. I was the breadwinner, making the income, providing stability, while my baby daddy sat at home, being comfortable. And somehow, I still convinced myself it was okay. I told myself, well, at least he's here. Because in my mind, presence, no matter how painful, still felt better than abandonment. And when he cheated or put his hands on me, I'd find an excuse to take him back. I'd tell myself, oh, he's just going through something. Or maybe if I love him harder, he'll change. How many of you can relate to this? But the truth was, I was just repeating what I saw. I was replaying generations of women who didn't know their worth, either by overgiving, controlling, or surrendering their power completely. It took years to realize that I wasn't in love. I was in survival. I wasn't trying to heal the little girl in me who thought love had to be earned or controlled. And I remember the day it hit me. It wasn't quiet. It was brutal. An argument with my ex blew up faster than I could breathe. And the last thing I remember before everything went dark was his hands around my throat. Next thing you know, I woke up on the hallway floor, dazed and confused. And the first thing I saw was my 2-year-old daughter at the time, crying, scared, and looking at me like she didn't understand what just happened. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I grabbed a knife. And I'm not going to lie, I was furious and I wanted to kill him. He was saved by a neighbor who intervened. But from that day on, that's all I could think about was ways to kill him. But then I saw my baby's face and reality hit me harder than the fear. If I acted on that rage and those thoughts, she would lose a parent and I'd be the one behind bars. It was that image that brought me back to myself. It pulled me out of survival fury and into a different courage. The courage to protect her and walk away, no matter how hard and how messy that felt. Because I also knew what it was like to witness your mother get beat and not being able to do anything about it. I remember those nights that brought me terror, and I refused to let my daughter relive that. And that's when refinement began. God started pulling me away from the familiar chaos that I called love. Not because I was being punished, but because I was being protected. And I had to learn that peace doesn't feel boring. It feels foreign when you lived in dysfunction. And I had to retain my nervous system to recognize peace as safe, not suspicious. Now I see that every time I released a relationship that no longer aligned with my worth, I wasn't losing love. I was making room for real love. Love that doesn't drain. love that doesn't demand, love that doesn't require you to shrink. Because healing isn't just walking away from the person, it's walking away from the pattern and breaking those generational cycles. That's the power in it. And it's beautiful. Now, I want you to take a breath with me. We're going to go into a reflection. Inhale, exhale. And just sit with this question. What did I learn about love growing up? What did you see? What did you learn from it? Because whether we realize it or not, we all carry a blueprint. And it's a subconscious pattern we repeat until we decide to heal it. That's where breaking the cycle comes into play. Let's do a little heart inventory together and ask yourself these questions. Did I grow up watching women overgive and men undershow up? Do I find myself being the fixer, the savior, or the provider in every relationship? Do I confuse chaos with passion, feeling alive only when there's drama? Do I make excuses for people who keep showing me they're not ready to love me right? And do I believe that being loved means being needed, even if it costs me my peace? If you said yes to any of these, you're not broken. You're conditioned. You learned love from survival and not safety. And that's okay, because awareness is where the cycle ends. Just know that you cannot attract peace while you're addicted to pain. You can't receive healthy love while your inner child is still chasing the familiar chaos. You can't. But that's the beauty of refinement. God will keep removing what isn't love until you finally recognize what is. So take another deep breath. Put your hand over your heart and close your eyes if it's safe to do so. If you can't, that's okay. And just say this with me. Repeat after me. I release the version of me that settled for survival. I am learning to receive love that feels safe. I am worthy of consistency, care, and peace. And know your refinement season isn't about losing love. It's about unlearning the lie that love has to hurt. Hey, my soul sister. If you've been feeling off lately, maybe drained, stuck, or disconnected from your purpose, I want you to know it's not all in your head. It's in your energy. That's why I created my free chakra healing guide, your simple roadmap to understanding the 7 energy centers in your body and how they shape your emotions, your clarity, and your flow. So, if you're ready to feel balanced, grounded, and in your power again, check the show notes to download your free chakra healing guide and transform your energy from the inside out. So let's move on and talk about how refinement is also meant to release your old identities. Because remember, as you wear the armor and live to survive, those identities are made up. The identities that once protected you, the strong one, the provider, the caretaker, the achiever, what have you. Those versions had purpose. They were built from pain, but they helped you survive. But here's the thing, survival and peace cannot coexist. So do indeed thank those versions of you that got you here, but also let them know you no longer need them to lead anymore. You are transforming into your higher self, and your higher self can now lead you from wisdom, intuition, and authenticity. And during the process, when you start healing, the ego will scream. It's like, who am I without the hustle? Who am I without being needed? Who am I without the chaos and all the noise? But then God whispers back, you are mine. You are already enough. This is when refinement asks you to let your armor fall off so you can finally feel your skin again. And it is so beautiful. And here's the thing, refinement will always test your faith. Always. Because when God removes what you thought you couldn't live without, He's not punishing you. He's protecting your purpose. There were moments when I wanted to run back to what was familiar. But He kept whispering, stay, just stay. I'm rebuilding you. Every time something fell apart, I learned to trust that it wasn't rejection. It was redirection. And refinement taught me that endings aren't failures. They're actually graduations. Every loss became an invitation to trust Him even deeper. So let's close this episode with a little integration practice. I want to leave you with these journaling prompts, and you can write them down or you can come back and listen to this later. First one is, what parts of my life feel heavy or misaligned right now? Second one, who or what am I holding on to out of fear rather than faith? Third one, what version of me is ready to rest? I also want to leave you today with some more affirmations. And again, you can write these down, post them on your wall, somewhere you can see them. I release what no longer reflects who I am becoming. I release what no longer reflects who I am becoming. I trust God's pruning as part of my preparation. It's a good one. I trust God's pruning as part of my preparation. And last one, I am safe to surrender. Yes, you are. I am safe to surrender. And I just want to close with a quick visualization. Again, if you can, close your eyes. If you cannot, it's okay. Picture yourself standing in a beautiful garden. You see God there, gently pruning a branch. Not to harm it, of course, but to help it grow stronger. That branch is you. Every leaf that falls is a version of you that no longer serves your next season. See it, believe it, feel it. Breathe in, release. Breathe out, receive. So in closing, refinement isn't easy. It strips you down, but it doesn't destroy you. It rebuilds you, makes you softer, wiser, and truer. So if you're in a season where it feels like everything's falling apart, remember, nothing is being lost. It's only being refined. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. This is the art of releasing what you outgrew. If this episode spoke to your spirit, share it with another woman walking through her refinement season. And join me next week as we step into realignment, the power of reconnecting with yourself. Until then, breathe deep, trust the process, and remember, you're not falling apart. You're falling into alignment.